This is Bleav in Buckeyes. I'm Bryant with All-American cornerback Chekwa. We got I don't know, it's the off season. It's like legit the off season now, man. But how you feeling over there, Chim? How you doing, man? How's your week going so far, man?
Week is good, man. I'm feeling good, man. I've it's interesting. I've been kind of working for years on my injuries, right? Just continuing to like rehab and everything. And like this is the first time I almost feel like I felt when I was playing. Like when I was in my pride.
Hold on. That's saying something.
I challenged one of the kids I trained to a race. And he beat me. All right, he beat me.
Oh, come on, man. I thought this was going to go in on a happy ending, man. Good note.
Listen. Okay. I'm a long speed guy, man. We only had a short area, burst. We stretched that out a little bit. I think I would have got him. But there's no way to confirm that. There's no way to confirm that.
Yeah, there's no way. Because he might have got faster, too. Yeah, no, man, I hear you, man. Last time I raced a high school kid, well, anybody for that matter, I still was playing, so it was years ago. I was in the NFL at the time, and I had a sled on. I had a vest on. And the little kid, if it's one thing for sure, if you're a little pudgy kid in high school, like, bro, the stuff you learn in college, like, it'll change your life, right? It's gonna change your life. And he was on his way to college. He wasn't there yet. Oh yeah, I'll race you with a vest on, man. I know I'll win. And sure enough, I smoked the little kid, man. He was a good dude, though. He worked really hard. Man, but hey, man, we need to get into this show, man. Get into some NIL discussion. Obviously, it's the offseason. We patted ourselves on the back last week. None of our scholarship players jumped into the transfer portal after the spring. Shouts out to Coach Day and the staff. Got guys hungry to come back and defend that national championship. But our guy in Indiana, Coach Cignetti, he always got the quotes, man.
Yeah,
he always got the quotes. But he was kind of mentioning that, he felt like some guys have almost unlimited NIL. He must have lost some guys that he wanted in the portal to some other schools. He started naming, he said, usual suspects, Oregon, Texas, Ohio State. We also threw out some guys like Texas Tech in the mix, things of that nature. And now it's kind of, being rumored that there may be some, well, not being rumored, but we know rev share is coming soon, another year or so. And that he's thinking that might even out the playing field. It also might be, some other factors kind of coming in to kind of, once again, kind of level out their playing field when it comes to NIL. But I don't know. It kind of brings up the question, do it matter to you, or is the best team still going to be the best team?
Yeah, it's interesting because the numbers being thrown out. There was a report came out that Texas budget for NIL this year between $35 and $40 million, right? Mm-hmm. And it was a shocker. I think that was last year with reports of Ohio State having a $20 million roster.
Yeah.
And what was always funny is that they talked about Ohio State's number, but they never really considered that teams that are comparable to Ohio State may also be around the $20 million range in terms of keeping their roster together. But Texas, the report for Texas, and I'm assuming some of those others that Cignetti has mentioned, is upwards of $40 million. So you think about double the price, right? In terms of what, so, I just think it's the nature of the beast, right? You let the market set the prices, and it's going to continue to rise based on what's out there and based on competition. And as we know, look at the D-line and transfer portal and some of the guys that Ohio State was going after, that Texas was also going after. And you can see that Texas got all those guys. So they stayed true to whatever that high-end budget mark is for them. And, I think it's an impactful. I think the combination, so to me, the combination of NIL and the transfer portal is where things get a little tricky. Because now, if you have the most money, you can truly go get the best players. It's not, without the transfer portal, even if you were spending money, you're getting recruits, and you got to develop those recruits. Those 5-star guys may not actually finish as 5-star players. But when you're getting guys out of the transfer portal, these guys are proven players. So we're getting the best available proven players that are in the market, and we got the most money. And if we say this is the year, Arch Manning is gonna step in and take the reins at quarterback. We feel like we got some of the other pieces in place, and this is the year. Guys could push those chips into the table, raise all the money, and right before rev share happens, right before the allotted money that is going to be set aside to pay players happens, we can go for it this year. And I mean, Texas isn't the only one. Penn State, I don't know what their budget is, but it's got to be up there.
It got to be up there, right? Yeah, because I mean, just looking at the list now, 24/7 does a great job at accumulating information and getting out there for our college fans to kind of look at. They kind of rank the teams, right? And there's a quick list. You got LSU as number 1, Texas Tech number 2, which is kind of surprising, right?
Texas
They're
Tech,
not usually in the mix of things. Miami, Ole Miss, and you get down to Oregon, and it looks like how they did their ranking and so on from there. But it looks like they kind of look at like the rating of the player and then the number of guys as well. So it's not like you might have more people, but who had better people, more I guess quality players kind of come in as well. And this is basically all due to ratings. But I think Coach Cignetti has said before, obviously they built their team last year. That was a playoff team. All out of the portal, right? A lot of guys that came with him from James Madison. They obviously got some other guys from other schools as well. He just kind of talked about, him and his staff being able to identify the talent that they need to run their scheme, right? And I think, with college football, sometimes, you're just pulling guys, right? But do they actually truly fit your scheme and what you want to do as a team? And that's also important as well when you want to build a team. And obviously, the ultimate goal now is right to get into that playoffs, to get into that mix, and give yourself a chance at winning a national championship. Right?
Yeah, and it seems like he's identifying guys, and they're going to Texas Tech, right? That oil money out there in Texas, they're putting it together, and Texas Tech, who has I think over 20 transfer portal commits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're another team that's going all in. I'm not as familiar with Texas Tech's roster.
Yeah, me either. It's funny, right?
They are pulling guys in. Obviously, as you mentioned, the usual suspects. The Oregon, Ohio State doesn't have a ton of transfer portal commits, but they never really. Ohio State is more of we're going to get these guys young and develop them, and then we're going to fill in what we need. I'm actually interested in Penn State because they've taken a similar approach, I think, to Ohio State and Michigan, keeping some of their stars on the team for another year, not going to the NFL. And then they've been pulling in a few guys out of the transfer portal. And my criticism of Penn State, which really is my criticism of Penn State for maybe the last decade, they just never have a star receiver. Like, how can you possibly be at the top of college football for so many years and just not produce one like star level talent at receiver consistently? Just one, right? And they hit on a guy finally out of Syracuse who was one of the big time receivers in the transfer portal market. So Penn State actually, I think, we talk about some of these teams like Texas Tech and others who are putting a lot of money in and getting a ton of transfers, but LSU, Texas Tech, if you look at those teams, they got a bunch of guys in. They also got a bunch of guys out. They got to fill the team. Teams like Penn State, Texas have a nucleus already there, and they're really just kind of picking some of the needs and trying to find the best available out there. So those teams become a real threat, already having that foundation already set.
Yeah, and then and obviously I was way early. Where early. Spring has ended for most teams, and now you got people kind of coming up with rankings and things of that nature. And Penn State was sitting at number 1 in the rating I saw. Yeah, Penn State number 1. I think 2 was Texas, Ohio State 3, and Oregon, and right after that. And it makes it's hard to argue against it, right? You got your quarterback coming back for year 3. You got 2 legit star running backs coming back. Like you say, they hit on a guy in the transfer portal, a guy that had put up a lot of production out of Syracuse at that receiver position. And then they also, as we know, got our defensive coordinator who just led the number 1 defense in the nation there now as well. So, they got a lot of things, going in that way, but obviously it's just a ranking. We love that Penn State.
My take on Penn State always. I don't care who walks through that door, man. It's still Penn State, man. They're gonna be at the top of college football. They're gonna compete. They're gonna push you to the brink, but they're not gonna get over the top. They just will not. They'll climb that hill 3/4 of the way. They just won't get all the way to the top. And I don't
but no,
care
but
what they do.
I'm sorry, we've kind of strayed away from the original question though. But the original question here was thinking about once this thing's kind of, I guess it's being anticipated that things with NIL, pure dollars to players, not for recruiting technically, for their image, but obviously it's kind of going for recruiting. It's going to kind of slow down and even up once this rare share kind of start. Do you think that's going to even the playing field for teams? Like, is all of a sudden Purdue going to be competing with,
No.
Indiana to be the best team in the state, or what's your thoughts on that? I guess things of that nature. That makes sense.
Yeah, unless they can change capitalism. Unless we can break down capitalism. Look, it wasn't an even playing field when there was no NIL.
Yeah.
Right? Where Ohio State put all their money into the carpet and the cold tub and the underwater treadmill and the locker room and the basketball court and all that stuff, right? It wasn't even. So when I took my visit, I went to visit the University of Maryland, and Tressel was like, well, don't go home. How about we just fly you from Maryland to Ohio State? So I went to go see Maryland, and I loved it, enjoyed it. I loved the Under Armour stuff. I loved, putting the Under Armour uniform on, the visors, and when you go out in the sun, the visors tint. And I'm like, man, I can see myself playing here. And then I hopped on a flight, came to Columbus, and said, yeah, I'm never going back to Maryland, man. I told my dad, like, I think I'm gonna go ahead and commit, man. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to see. I'm gonna see something that matches Ohio State. And there was. Rayburn was the new Rayburn was still under development at this point. It was still light years ahead of Maryland. So, I mean, it's never really been a fair fight. But I would say this, even with the rev share, there's still NIL that exists outside of that. So, you can figure out your structure for how you're going to, for the rev share, the lawsuit, NIL, is pretty much the settlement was $20-some million for every, I guess
school and conference,
school, and that $20 million or so dollars is what is allotted for the athletic department, right? So obviously football and some basketball is really what generates all the funds. So however they divvy that money up is up to the school, but then you still have the ability to bring in NIL dollars outside of that, and I don't know how they're going to regulate it, but however they do, just know that Ohio State, Texas, the Oregon,
Alabama.
Yeah, the teams that have consistently generated the money to be at the top of football to invest into their organization are still going to be the teams that stay at the top. And those other teams are going to have to figure out what their approach to the market is going to be. And I do think the transfer portal is the biggest equalizer in college sports right now. Being able to come up with a plan to figure out, okay, how do I actually develop and then also fill in needs where I can. And if you have a good approach, you see what Indiana to me is a good example. If you have a good approach to utilizing the transfer portal, every couple of years, you can create a team that can compete at a high level.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you talk about the transfer portal because it kind of brings me to the next point here. Is that we about a week ago, it was a big news out of Tennessee that Tennessee was losing their quarterback. Nico was getting into the transfer portal, and it was a big news about how he went about it. Right, he kind of stopped practicing. It sounded like he was wanting more money. He stopped practicing, and then okay, he's definitely getting in, and then he gets to the portal, and it's like, oh, is he going to recoup the money he wants? And he's about end of the long story short, he ends up at UCLA.
Yeah.
But the smaller story here is that he also had a younger brother who plays quarterback, who was also in the SEC. He was playing quarterback for South Carolina. His name is Madden. I'm going to butcher his last name. This is what I do. Malahi. He was at South Carolina.
Not South Carolina, Arkansas.
Arkansas. Okay, I'm sorry. Arkansas. Yep. He was at Arkansas, and he was a true freshman, so he was there through spring. But when his transfer window opened up, he joined his brother. He went to UCLA to play with his older brother there for college. And it kind of sparked a little bit of not going to call it uproar, but Arkansas said, hey, we're not about to just let you walk out the door with that NIL money we gave you. In your contract, you had a buyout of about $200K. It was rumored he was getting $500K. It's rumored that the buyout is $200K. And they're looking at pursuing. They're looking at collecting. And I guess a lot of teams have this buyout, but it's rare that teams actually pursue. but it seems like they're actually gonna, like I say, try to recoup those funds from him. I guess what's
Yeah,
your thoughts on that? Is
yeah.
that fair?
I'm
Or
interested. I'm
eh,
interested in how it played out because did he get the full amount? Because he's a true freshman. Like he hasn't even gone through
the
a
season?
freshman year. Like
Yeah.
he hasn't finished the class yet. Right. So I'm interested in how much of that money did he actually receive? Did he get the full first year payment and then decide I'm not going to actually finish that first year? I'm going to leave. Or did he get partial payment of it? Let's say he got half of it, but still, like I'm not actually going to play the season. I'm just going to leave, and they're saying, look, you got a buyout in there. I think that's important. A buyout makes sense. I mean, it's like standard contract. Like, well, why am I giving you money if you're not going to be here? All right, this is just like forget about contracts and all that stuff. Just the reality is, why would I give you money that you're just going to leave and not be here? I do think as a school, you got to be a little bit concerned in suing a player because as a school, you're focused on recruiting players. If players, recognize that, damn, if I go here, and I end up somewhere else, there could be a real like challenge in terms of being able to get out of there, buy out, getting sued, etc. Maybe it might be easy for me just not to go there. let me not go to Arkansas. Let me just go to South Carolina, where maybe that never comes up. But maybe if it happens, it's not going to be the hassle they have to deal with. So that's one of those things where Arkansas has to be fully within their right, and from a player's perspective, to not damage their recruiting in the future, it has to make sense. But at some point, you got to stand on something, right?
Yeah, you got to, right? I mean, like a lot of these schools are like, we talk about it all the time. Like, a guy not happy, he's jumping the pool, and all that stuff. But like,
Yeah.
Obviously, money matters, right? I mean, like I think we kind of talk about like, there's a budget to this thing, right? It's not just people grabbing money off a tree and just paying players. Like, someone put some thought, like, okay, this is what we can actually afford to continue to be a university and also, be a competitive team, right? If we're talking about football in this matter, but goes for all sports, right? Basketball, all of the above. So, they have to do something to protect themselves, right? And I think a buyout is a good way to do it. But it's I guess if you're looking at something, a quick rule change, maybe you put that buyout kind of like you see in coaching, or you see kind of like if we're looking at big soccer, right? You got that transfer money for players, and when it comes to soccer in the big leagues, the school that take you, maybe they got to pay that buyout. You know what I mean? So put a little bit more weight, a little bit more to it, if you really want a guy, because they have maybe some money in that contract that you may have to pay to the other school. I don't know, but I think it's a good thought, and I think they do need to do something like to kind of protect themselves, because you just don't want, like you say, you give a guy a big chunk of money, the wind blows, and he just take his money and go play elsewhere.
Yeah,
that's not the spirit of things.
Yeah,
sure.
I like a buyout that's public, right? Like at least public to the other schools, right? So I'm interested in pursuing Madden out of Arkansas. His buyout is $250,000. As a school, I know that going in, right? So that way I can make a decision: is this something I'm willing to pay, or is it not? Because it gets tricky if you hop into the transfer portal and then the kid has to now do those negotiations, and teams are like, well, what's your buyout? And then they tell them the buyout. Like that, it gets too tricky. They should just know that I'm going into this situation with this buyout. But what the hard part about this is the kids who are getting paid are unproven at the college level. That's one of the biggest challenges. Like in the NFL, it's kind of the same way when you draft a kid, you're paying him this money, except the NFL's roster is like 50 guys, right? This player is going to contribute to this team. Like even if he's a quarterback, like we don't have enough guys for you not every day in practice to be a contributor to the team, every day in the meeting room to be a contributor to us getting ready for this game. In college, with 80, 100 guys on the roster,
105,
and a young quarterback, this first year, like he may not really be doing that much for the team. And then you take your money and leave. It's like we just wasted $500,000 on a guy, or $1 million in some cases, to have a guy in for a year, that becomes tough on the school for real.
Yeah, that's for sure. But man, but real quick, I guess talk this the end of transfer portal discussion. Ohio State did grab a kicker. We got Jackson Corville out of Ball State. Look like he got a big boot on him, man. Look like he got some 50-plussers. Makes.
Yeah.
We still got our kicker from last year, Jaden Fielding. He's still on the roster, and also we know he doesn't have the longest leg, but in most games he's pretty consistent. Put it like that. We grabbed a long snapper from North Carolina and the Grant Mills. And I guess it's also worth mentioning on the high school level that we got another surprise, we got another big time receiver coming to Ohio State, and Caden Dixon Wyatt out of Oakland, California. Heartline did it again.
Out of the same school that Chris Henry goes to, and I think the importance of this is Heartline did it again. We're always going to stack 5-star, 4-star level receivers, but this is a guy that was considering Oregon. All right, I think maybe USC. I'm not for sure, but you keep this kid from going to Oregon and going to one of the other top competitors. That's also an important part of it, right? Because these guys on the West Coast are now considering division, conference rivals in USC and Oregon. So when you get those guys to come up to Ohio State, that's huge. Plucking kids out of Florida, plucking kids out of the West Coast, that's big time.
Yeah, and also got to mention we lost a guy to the West Coast. Right, we get a guy and a wide receiver. We lose a corner, and Albert here out of Akron Hoban, he commits to USC. I know that was a guy that was on Ohio State board as far as the defensive backfield for the 26 class. But man, hey, real quick, we got a couple minutes left, and we know it's college football, and we know if it's college football, let's say the last handful of years. We got to talk about the team up north. And whenever we talk about the team up north, you got to talk about a scandal, suspension, somebody not really following the rules. So we got new news today that the head coach, Ron Maury, will be suspended, self-imposed suspension. Even though, they ain't doing anything wrong. They have to, impose another suspension on their head coach, who's going to sit out 2 games this up-and-coming season. And it's funny, it's like he select those games, right? Usually you suspension. And the first games come up, I'm sit out. Not the way the team up north do it. They decide they're gonna sit out games 3 and 4 of the season because 1 and 2 they got a big one coming up against Oklahoma. But I mean, I know you said you had some thoughts. And also, I want to tee it up.
Michigan has been one of the silliest programs in the past few years. This is what kills me about Michigan, is that they've been one of the silliest programs, but they've competed at a high level and they win a national championship. So it cancels out the silliness for so much. In last 3 years, they've had head coach suspensions 8 games. Right? They've lost, and they took a job. Right? The head coach Jim Harbaugh took a job. We'll call it promotion with San Diego.
He ran away. Yeah.
But even post leaving Michigan, they have sanctions on them. The defensive coordinator, the former defensive back coach, etc., still being reported on currently, right? And we went through the whole list of, they didn't do anything wrong, they didn't do anything illegal. Then, okay, maybe it was illegal, but it didn't really impact. It wasn't that big of a deal. Okay, maybe something didn't happen. Maybe he was on Central Michigan sideline, etc. Yeah. But everybody's doing it, right? Everybody's doing it, right? And now we're at a point where, okay, maybe we did do something we shouldn't do. So we're gonna self-impose a suspension. We're gonna punish ourselves, but we're not gonna do it for the first 2 games. We play Oklahoma week 2. We're gonna do 3 and 4. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. Nothing to look at. The president of Michigan has left the university.
Yeah,
and you can argue that it was for other reasons. But it's just this pattern of all the coaches leaving, all the people in position leaving. By the end of this, you're gonna have players and a staff that had nothing to do with what happened prior serve or be hurt by all the things that happened. And it's not just the sign stealing.
No,
there's recruiting violations, there's cyber crimes. This is, man, just one of the silliest programs in recent history, and it pains me because we've lost to them. Like it's a little bit of, we can't fully break free from the silliness because we've contributed to it and just not getting the win. But that's got to be over with, man.
That gotta be over with, man. Obviously, it's a new year. Hopefully, we exercised some demons this season, right? Win that national championship, so we're gonna keep that mojo going and take that to the season. We get things right against that team up north, and not succumb to all the silliness that goes on up there with that program. But man, if you're catching basketball, I think that huge win for the Knicks. If you're making bets, check out Bet Online. My Cleveland Cavaliers are still in it. Our Lakers, that me you cheer for, they're out of it, man. Right? McAdam hurt his knee, so he needs some time to relax. But check out Bet Online for placing any bets when it comes to these playoffs. Also, you got the NHL playoffs going on as well, and obviously baseball season, MLB is in the mix. So check out Bet Online. They're there to help you out with anything you may need in that category. And that's it, man. We're gonna end our show as always with a nice OH.
Yo.
Go Bucks. Talk to you guys soon.
Go Bucks.